Assalamualaikum, Dr. Saleem.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear participants. Welcome to this session of Islam Study Circle. As per our tradition, we'll start off with a verse from the Quran. To be exact, this is verse 177 of Surah number 2, Surah Baqarah. I'm going to read its translation, which says, "Loyalty to God does not merely consist in facing the east or the west in the prayer, but loyalty is the loyalty of those who believe in God in the last day, in the angels of God, in divine books, and in the prophets of God, and who, though they love it dearly, give away their wealth to the kindred, the orphans, the needy, the traveler, and to those who ask, and for the liberation of necks, and who are diligent in their prayer and pay zakat, and of those who stand by their word when they give it, and especially of those who are steadfast in scarcity, illness, and war. These are the people who are truthful to God in fulfilling the promise of loyalty to Him, and these are the ones who are, in fact, God fearing." Well, this is a very famous and a very conspicuous verse of the Quran. I would say it stands out amongst various verses in Surah Baqarah. And the background of this verse is that there was this debate going on between the Jews and Christians regarding the Qibla, regarding the point of direction in which they would pray. And this would often revolve around east and west. So it seems that the Christians would pray towards the east, and the Jews would do so in opposition into the west of the temple. And it is to this effect that the Quran is telling the Muslims that these debates between the direction of worship, yes, they hold importance, but they are not the essence of religion. They are not the essence of religion, and that essence is actually loyalty to God. And that loyalty is not something that you will gauge by simply trying to find out the exact direction and then convincing the other people, or maybe even demeaning them to accept it. The thing is that loyalty is something much more deeper. It is much more intense. And then, as you can see, the verse spells out the requisites of this loyalty. And as you will see, and as you've already seen also, that it is quite a comprehensive statement given by the Quran as to what loyalty exactly is. So it starts off by saying that loyalty is the loyalty of those who believe in God. Obviously, this means to the effect that they believe in God in with all their essence, with all their mind, with all their soul. They are not in any way wavered from this belief. They know that even if trials come their way, God is going to stand by them. God is going to wish them well. And these trials are meant to uplift them. They are meant to make them stronger. And if they believe in God, it is not because of any dogma. It's because they think that God is a reality. He is someone who has created them. He is someone who is looking after them. And he is someone who, is the most inescapable fact and reality of this universe. And then, not only this, they also believe that when God has sent down in this world, the purpose is to check and try and test our mettle. And for this, God says that, well, one day they will be called back, all mankind will be called back by God, and then they'll be held accountable for what they did in this world. And for this, they have to believe in the day of judgment. That day of judgment is bound to come. It is something that is destined to come. And it is going to be a day in which perfect justice will be administered. In this world, all that we can get is possible justice, and that too, many a time, eludes us. But there is a day that has been fixed for that. There is a time that has been ascertained for that, in which every human soul will be called to account. Even their intentions would be judged. And when the judgment will be made, people will confess that, yes, this is what they did or what they deserved. Such will be the extent of justice that will be administered on that day. And about them, it is said that this loyalty to God is not just a mere claim by them. They are ones who believe in reality in these stipulas and these articles of faith. And these include, of course, belief in God, belief in the hereafter, and then the angels are also mentioned. The reason for them is that they are the means of communicating the message of God between Himself and human beings. The humankind is someone that cannot receive directly the message of God, so there has to be something in between. These angels, they are the ones who play this role, and the reason that they are mentioned is that if this role is somehow subtracted or deleted, then this is like a missing link which is found between God and creation and His creation, and which has on many occasions resulted in a lot of polytheistic inclinations too from human beings. And it goes on to say, wal kitab, which means that believers, they believe in all the books of God. They have been sent by Him. They're not just, they're not just a question of belief by them. What has happened is that they also know that these books in their own times were the books of God sent by Him, preserved as long as God wanted in their own language. But later on, of course, posterity and the progeny of most of these prophets never could preserve them. And at the end, the Quran had to be revealed because the institution of prophethood was to be terminated. And there had to be some book of God that could be preserved in its original language so that it could be regarded as a source of God's guidance. And finally, it is said, when Nabiyeen, that believers, they don't discriminate, although it's not explicitly mentioned here, but what is mentioned here is that they believe in all the prophets of God, because the word used is plural, one nabiyyin. They believe in all prophets of God. They accord them equal respect. They don't differentiate and discriminate between prophets. They regard them to be the source of God's guidance. Many prophets of God, we know, they came as sources of guidance, and others they came with books of guidance as well. And amongst those, we know that four have survived: the Torah, the Gospel, the Psalms, which also called the Zabur by the Quran, and the Quran itself. So these are the four Gospels that, or the four books of God that survive. And even though there are people who think that the book of Genesis has parts of the books of the scripture of Abraham, and of course, these can be read in the light of the Quran, and one can really understand how these books still preserve a major part of God's guidance in spite of being interpolated on some occasions, but they still do preserve a major part of God's guidance. And then once these articles of faith have been mentioned, we see that the verse proceeds to one of the most important areas of human conduct, and that is they spend on other people, they look after other people. So it is said, وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ ذَوِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينَ وَابْنَ السَّبِيلِ. So they are the people who spend their wealth on their kindred, the orphans, the needy, for the liberation of necks, of course, and there's a whole list that is mentioned here. So the list starts off with Zawil Kurba, which means the kindred, people who are blood relations, people who are close to us. Obviously, they hold priority, they hold preference. Whenever the need comes, they are the ones who should be taken care of. And it's not just that needs should come to our notice, but proactively, we need to find out people around us, especially amongst our relatives who might be in need. And then, not only in the case of our immediate surroundings and relatives, but it has to extend to other people who might be in want. So, the needy, the orphans, obviously, they are a vulnerable section of the society, the miskeen, of course, the people who are those who ask. And then, what is mentioned here is that in those times, because slavery prevailed as an institution, as an ugly institution which human beings had invented. So it is said that they are the ones who spend for the liberation of necks as well, and for the traveler as well. Remember, in those times, and indeed in some situations today also, these travelers are like asylum seekers. They travel at times to find new opportunities in new lands, in new territories, and as such, they need help, human help. So about them, it is said that wasa'ilina wa fir riqab, and for the liberation of necks. Of course, slavery, as I just mentioned, was an institution that had to be terminated with the departure of the last prophet, and it was in effect by the Quran. All the orders that was essential to be given in order to have it absolutely in place were given, but unfortunately, slavery continued to survive even after the Quran had ordered its explicit emancipation of all the slaves. And it was only in the last century that slavery was actually abolished, and that too in the international world. So, after mentioning this attitude of helping out people around human beings, around people in their surroundings, the next thing which is mentioned is, in fact, two pillars of faith, in the sense that these are two pillars of worship. And these two pillars are, one of them is Aqam as-Salah, which means that they are diligent in their prayer, and Wa'at az-Zakat, and they pay zakat. So, as you can see, that the pairing of Salat and Zakat, it's like an inseparable pair. In most occasions, you'll find both of these pillars of worship being mentioned side by side. And the reason is not difficult to understand, because regarding the the prayer, it connects us to God, and zakat, it connects us to human beings. So vertically, we are connected to God through the prayer, and horizontally, we are connected to human beings, to our fellow fraternity, through helping them by this institution of zakat. So this is once again mentioned with the golden touch that Kama Salat wa Ata Zakat, they are the ones who they show diligence in the prayer because they know that the prayer is an acknowledgement of God's favors, His blessings. When we place our forehead on the ground, we actually acknowledge that God, you have given all of these favors to us, even without our asking, and even if we don't deserve them. So we do express our gratitude. And we also discussed the same thing. The zakat is something that was a stipulatory amount that was to be given from the wealth of an individual. It's not just something that they could do or they could not do. It was an obligation on their part. So this also is something that they would undertake. And the next thing which is mentioned, of course, is a very important thing. Well, mufuna bi ahdihim iza ahadu, that who stand by their word when they give it. Again, this is a very, very significant part of a believer's life, that he or she would not give a word unless really wanted. Otherwise, as soon as that word or that promise would be made, then there would be no way in the world that it would not be fulfilled, unless, of course, in emergency circumstances and contingent circumstances. Otherwise, believers are those people who make this claim to loyalty to God. They are those who stand by their word, who make promises and they fulfill these promises. And remember, these promises might be written, they might be in the form of an unwritten understanding. So, as written promises, we all know we have obligations, but even in the case of unwritten promises, like our duty towards our country, towards our fellow human beings, towards to the rights of our neighbors and other people of the society, they might not be written, but they are understood to be present. And the word ahad here encompasses them as well. وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ. So the last trait which is mentioned in this verse is that these people are patient and they persevere in situations which are adverse. And these situations which are adverse, they are actually enumerated. There are three types of situations that encompass all forms of trial. So one of them is scarcity, which means financial uh, constraint. The other one is illness, and the third one is war. So all these three states are they are means of great trial for human beings. So what happens is that they don't get bogged down by these trials. They don't start complaining to God. They think that these trials are meant to make them fly even higher. They are meant to bring them closer to God. They are meant to make them stronger than before. And hence, once these qualities, these traits of the believers are enlisted, the Quran says, "Ulaika allazina sadaqu," that these are the people who are in fact truthful to their claim of loyalty to God. So remember, this verse started off with the fact that the loyal people of God, who are they? Who are the sincere people of God? And then this whole statement that was given, we've just seen them. It consists of a number of things, a number of directives. And once they have been mentioned, the Quran says that they are the people who, if they fulfill what has been said, then they can be said that they really are truthful in their claim towards loyalty to God. And then وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُتَّقُونَ, that they are in fact pious and God-fearing. And so this list ends with this verse. And now, viewers, we move on to the next section of our study circle. This is a hadith that we'll be studying. So the hadith is taken from the Al-Jami Sahih of Imam Muslim. It reads, Jarir ibn Abdullah stated, I asked God's messenger about a sudden gaze of a non-mahram woman. He told me to turn my eyes away. And then there's a similar narrative which says from Abdullah ibn Abbas that he reports that once Fazl ibn Abbas was sitting, so Fazl ibn Abbas was his cousin, who was sitting behind him on a camel. When a lady from the Khatham tribe came over, he started to stare at her, and she also stared back. When the Prophet saw him, he caught hold of his face and turned it to one side. So, viewers, this is a very loving sort of a tale and narration. That person was caught staring, someone that the Prophet knew, so he gently turned the face of Fazl ibn Abbas aside, signifying the fact that staring at women in a manner that is lustful, which is something that should not be done. And that is why it is said that at times it might happen that you have no control over it, because you suddenly see someone So in that situation, what has been said is that any accidental gaze that a woman should be, should not, is not liable, but then one should turn away. So this actually needs some more explanation. It does not mean that you cannot look at women or women cannot look at men in normal situations, in general circumstances, when the conversation is taking place, or uh, any meaningful exchanges in process. Looking at each other is fine. The only thing is that it should not be lustful, and one should view each other as one views one's siblings, and that, of course, carries that modesty in the eye. And that is the whole situation at hand, is the whole case in point. The Prophet wants us to guard our gaze, to restrain our gaze. And we do know, dear viewers, that everything starts with the eye. So, if the eyes are restrained from taking undue liberty, future steps that might be causes of pitfall, they are easily avoided. So, it is here that the Quran has also said that they should be restraining their gaze, and the word used by the Quran is ghazul basar, which means the gaze should be guarded. Your sight should not be staring, it should not be looking at the contours of the opposite gender in a way that is unseemly and unbecoming. And so, because of the fact that these are the stumbling blocks of a person in a person's life that might lead that person to something which might be untoward. So remember, the whole issue at hand is to protect the sanctity of the family institution. And for that, it is essential that the spouses, they are devoted to one another. They don't look beyond the marriage bond to other men and women who are unrelated. They are their loyalty, their gazes, and everything is confined to each other in the manner that we have just discussed. So the reason being that this is the thing that's going to protect that marriage bond from becoming jeopardized, from becoming endangered. They should look at one another the way they want to, but this should not be the case in the case of any unrelated individuals, because as we just said, that this is the starting point of deviation that a person can come across. We now come to the Bible, and this is actually a section of verses from the Gospel of Luke. This is chapter number 6 and verses 36 to 49. It says, Be full of pity, even as your Father is full of pity. Be not judges of others, and you will not be judged. Do not give punishment to others, and you will not get punishment yourselves. Make others free, and you will be made free. Give, and it will be given to you. Good measure, crushed down, full and running over, they will give to you. For in the same measure as you give, it will be given to you again. And he gave them teaching in the form of a story. So this is Jesus teaching them in the form of a story. And he said, Is it possible for one blind man to be guide to another, and they not go falling together into a hole? The disciple is not greater than his master, but everything or everyone whose learning is complete will be like his master. And why do you take note of the grain of dust in your brother's eye, but take no note of the bit of wood which is in your eye? How will you say to your brother, Brother, let me take the grain of dust out of your eye, when you yourself do not see the bit of wood in your eye? O false one, first take the wood out of your eye, and then you will see clearly to take the dust out of your brother's eye. For no good tree gives bad fruit, and no bad tree gives good fruit. For every tree is judged by its fruit. Men do not get figs from thorns, or grapes from blackberry plants. The good man out of the good store of his heart gives good things, and the evil man out of his evil store gives evil. For out of the full store of the heart come the words of the mouth. Why do you say to me, Lord, Lord, and do not get the things which I say? And do not the things which I say. Everyone who comes to me and gives ear to my words and does them, I will make clear to you what he is like. He is like a man building a house who went deep and put the base of it in a rock. And when the water came up and the river was driving against that house, it was not moved, because the building was good. But he who gives hearing without doing is like a man building a house on the earth without a base for it. And when the force of the river came against it, straightway it came down, and the destruction of that house was great. So, viewers, as you can clearly see, that this is a passage which has multiple teachings for all of us. So, Jesus, in particular, peace be upon him, in these Gospels, you'll see him speaking in parables, in one-liners, in pithy, succinct sentences and statements that really move the heart and touch the soul. So, as you can see, that these are those lofty morals, high conduct, uh, barometer stipulations which he has continued to present before his disciples, one after the other. And obviously, the one thing that stands out is that whatever you do, you're going to be paid back in that same way. If you are good to others, and others would be good to you, and especially God is going to reward you. And also remember that if you have to be a pure individual, then it should start by assessing your own self. So if you don't see the dust in your eye, if you see the dust in the other person's eye and do not see the piece of wood stuck in your own eye, it only means that you are picking faults of other people without realizing your own faults. And amongst other things, of course, we can discuss all of them, but I'm just going to stick to this one big piece of advice, that the best criticism is self criticism, self accountability, self evaluation, self assessment. This is what Jesus was telling his disciples, that it's easy to point out the fallacies, the mistakes, the shortcomings of other people, but it's really difficult to find out one's own faults and shortcomings and to try to mend them, to try to turn them away from our lives, to become a better person, to become a better human being. And throughout the Gospels, dear viewers, as you have seen, many of you have read many part of these Gospels. Through these sessions, you'll see that how beautifully Jesus puts his thought across to his disciples in a way that they at times feel stunned. They are amazed at how things have been stated, and they just pierce the heart and stay there, and they are etched in the mind as well. So, like thinking about people, what they are doing wrong, that should be a business that should come secondarily to us. Primarily, it should be an assessment of our own life, our own uh, priorities, and our own ways of thinking that should hold precedence. So remember that this is something that stands out in this set of teachings, that criticism has to be directed at one's own self, because the reason is that I know myself better than anyone else, maybe, and I have enough data. Regarding other people, we don't have sufficient data, and we just cannot make a value judgment. And that is why God says that judging people is my domain. I will judge them. You don't have the data, you don't have the prerogative, and you don't have the least thing which is required. That would mean that their intentions, the way they do things, the circumstances in which they do things, and also we get an only partial view of their life, the complete life that they lead, the problems that they might be passing through, the mitigating circumstances that they may be going through are known to no one. So, better to concentrate on our own selves and strive and vie with one another to become better human beings. So, viewers, with this, we end our third segment as well. And we now go on to the fourth segment, which is now normally a moderated discussion. Today, Bisma will be moderating. So, the topic is depression. Is it a vacant mind's disease? So, just let me introduce this topic a bit. And so, this is what is meant here is that there are chronic forms of depression, of course, which are not mentioned here, which means that they need the treatment of a doctor, that you need to be treated for chronic depression. However, other than that, there are areas and other situations in which that has not become chronic, but we do fall to depression. So the question is that isn't it a vacant mind's disease, which means that people, if they don't have anything to do, then they are prone to depression. However, if they have some form of occupation, some form of engagement, this might be an antidote to a non-chronic form of depression. So over to you, Bisma.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Saleem. Assalamualaikum, everyone. The topic we have today is absolutely brilliant. I think it is be able to encompass a lot in it if we have if everybody is willing to talk about it. These things are sometimes personal to people, but it'll be great if people can come forward with their opinions. If anybody wants to talk about it first, otherwise I'll start. Let me see if I have any raised hands.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I'll begin. I feel, Dr. Saleem, that depression, as you mentioned, there are some chronic forms of depression, but the forms that now are rampant in society, it almost seems it's a byproduct of capitalism and byproduct of
Mm-hmm.
of a marketing scam, because
Mm.
people don't want to be accountable anymore. People don't want to be held responsible for how they act. Um, they want everything to be a syndrome, it seems, and everything has to be blamed on something. So the best
Mm.
thing they've come up with is, I think, this loose term that they've started using, depression, as a it's almost like a scapegoat, and I think it takes away our attention from the real people who are suffering it. What
Mm-hmm.
humans encounter, I feel, is also the normal ebb and flow of humans' moods, which are, we go up and down in our moods, we have mood swings, things impact
Mm-hmm.
us. That's just how humans are. But everything cannot be classified as depression. And I
Mm.
feel it's also a product of the Western civilization that has now traveled east. And you know, everybody started using this as a scapegoat. So
Mm.
my impression truly is that we've been given a book that tells us that practice and being mindful and being involved in society, in our professions, in our network of people, family,
Mm-hmm.
friends, being
Right.
devoted to those things really helps us remove that from us. So that's what
Mm.
I feel. I don't know how wrong or right I am, but this is my thought on it. And I feel most part of what we now classify as syndromes and depression is something we can take care of with self therapy, with talking to individuals who are wise, reaching out to counselors, reaching out to
Mm-hmm.
our religious leaders. I think that is because practice makes perfect, because we don't practice things anymore with
Mm.
diligence. We found ways, and especially with the media now, electronic
Mm.
media, and just sitting vacant and finding excuses. I think that's what my thought is. If anybody else has anything to say, Dr. Salim, why don't you say something, and then maybe I can include other people.
Well, I might chip in. Let us see what other people have to say, if there are people who interested to share their view.
Okay, let's see whose hand do I see raised. I do have Umar. Please go ahead. Give us your thoughts on this.
Hey, Assalamu alaikum.
Right, Salam.
Dr. Shehzad, being a physician, I would say that depression, and you can say, or you can add up mental disorder, but we are using the word depression here.
Mm-hmm.
So there are different types of depression. One is a loose term. We do it, we
Mm.
use it, and which you can say mood swings.
Mm.
And it can be due to external factors, sometimes non-external factors. Anything can be. You are sick, you are depressed. Sometimes you
Mm-hmm.
have something you want to do, or
Mm-hmm.
like any external factor can be, and it is a temporary thing. It goes and
Mm-hmm.
comes, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously the other thing is the illness. This is a
Mm.
totally different thing, and
Right.
this person
So
himself
we
or
remember
herself.
we are not discussing that illness part, which of course, being a physician, you would know very well. We're talking
Okay.
about, yeah, we're talking about those mood swings. We're talking about things that can be controlled through self-regulation and other methods.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, good. So that is a totally different thing. So there are all, but obviously, the one thing is that there are every personality types is different. Obviously, religion practices are very helpful in that, and basically is that how you are able to manage your life. But I have seen many people who apparently follow the religion. They are also suffering
Mm-hmm.
more from these things due to because they do not analyze it and they do not practice their personality development things. They just think, and
Correct.
so it's a thing that basically this kind of depression. Obviously, I agree with that. That is a basically becomes better with the when how you learn to manage the things, how you
Right.
develop your personality. So this is
Mm-hmm.
the thing basically I feel can. Anyway,
Right.
I would add that it is up that, but depression is a normal phenomena, and everyone will face it somehow.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
it should be the type of depression we are talking about. It's a normal phenomena, so it should not
Mm-hmm.
be any everyone someone told that you are depressed. It's your mistake. So this is
Mm-hmm.
also the things.
Right. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much for that, Omar. So, Dr. Salim, I also wanted to add here while we're waiting for hands that, there's so many things. Hobbies are such an important part of how
Mm.
we can
Mm.
elevate our mood. People don't have hobbies anymore. Everybody's focused on
Right.
social media. People are doom scrolling. That in
Mm.
itself creates a feeling of, sadness in us. We don't step out anymore. We don't hold
Mm.
ourselves accountable. Plus, exercise and having a regimen, practicing things,
Right.
looking that really
Mm.
takes care of a lot of things that we classify as depression, that loose term. So I feel
Right.
personal responsibility has gone away more. I see that you've raised your hand. Please go ahead and say what you need to say.
Is this like the question answer session now, or
This
we are
is this
still
is a
talking
discussion
about?
session. We have a topic. As you can see, Dr. Saleem just introduced us, and we'll be discussing our thoughts on this particular topic.
So the
If
Q&A session is going to come right after.
after, yeah.
Okay, then I'll wait for that.
So, okay. If anybody else has something to add to this wonderful topic, I have quite a few people who are in the session today. So, if anybody has anything to say about this topic, which I feel impacts all of us deeply, especially now with media
Mm.
being there with us every day. So, Dr. Salim, while we're waiting for people, what is your thought
So I
at a
think
broad level?
you have hit the nail on the head by saying that you see the things that can really help ourselves in overcoming these mood swings or these feeling that we can call a low feeling, a feeling in which you feel a little bit depressed, not in the technical sense, but in the sense of the mood that you often encounter. So I think one of the things is that, and the question you see, the very title is meant to stimulate your mind to discover this fact that basically, if you have a vacant mind, if you don't have an engagement, if you don't have a purpose in life, if you don't have an objective in life, then so these mood swings and these depressive feelings, they are, I mean, they'll overcome you. They'll overwhelm people because you see, because you don't have any pinpointed agenda in life. Small things are going to sway you from the path, and then you'll be just twinning about, meandering here and there, and with no sense of purpose. So the essence here is that if you discover a sense of purpose for yourself, if you have a target in life, if you have a mission in life, then even though still you might get disturbed by these low feelings, but then the frequency of that botheration might significantly reduce. So one of the things that is of great importance is that we must find ourselves a purpose in life, an engagement in life, and it I mean, you could be having more than one purpose. You could have one after the other, have a task before you, have a small mission before you, complete it, and then go on to another set of objectives that you might have in life, or you might have a one big mission. For example, something that all of us can do in order to circumvent these situations is to serve humanity in some form or the other, because this is what brings happiness to us when we see people getting happy, becoming happy because of our efforts. So happiness radiates happiness. And so one thing that every one of us can really indulge in or engage in is serving humanity, picking up any cause. It could be education, it could be medical science, it could be as simple a thing as listening to other people's problems, even smiling back at people who might be in misery. Uh, Maybe, as you also said, Ms. Bisma, that's also a very, very important thing, to do some community service, volunteering activity, like maybe going to an orphanage, an old home, uh, any such area in which you find people struggling, and you playing a role in trying to uh, make them happy, make them live even more with a sense of purpose. And also, last but not the least, is the sense of understanding that mental health is something that precedes at times and at times succeeds physical health. So, a good physical workout, something that can really help you, because I do believe that there are, I mean, I don't believe myself, that is what medical doctors say, that there are hormones that are secreted in our sweat that are antidepressants in their nature. And when you sweat, especially if you have a cardio exercise and you release that sweat, then it has a very soothing and a calming effect on you. So that is also something that is recommended. Exercise is now becoming slowly becoming difficult for people because of their hectic routines, and also at times because of the fact that it needs some special motivation. But nonetheless, if people can maybe play a sport, or if that's not possible, then even maybe doing some exercise at home, even yoga, some breathing. So this regulates your respiratory system, and sweating regulates your mood swings a lot. So this in itself is a very important thing. And then, of course, I mean, there are a host of things that we can suggest. I mean, as you said, practicing your hobbies that relaxes you. Everyone must have those hobbies, and they do have hobbies, so that they're a good pastime, they're a constructive pastime. Adding a skill to your repertoire of skills, so improving your skill set. Whatever your profession is, don't look back, look ahead. Try to become better than before, and this can only happen if you keep abreast with developments by improving your skill set every now and then, adding some new certification to your skill set. So having something going on in your life all the time, and the most important of that being serving people as much as you can, because that is one sure short way that can really make you happy.
So, Dr. Saleem, another thing that I've noticed is that our modern society, which I think people don't generally, focus on this aspect, have become very focused on feelings. Feelings are not supposed to precede. Practice is what should go first, and then feelings happen. So, what we do, I think, as individuals, is we marinate in our feelings too much. Oh, I'm feeling sad. Oh, I'm lonely. Oh, I think I have depression. Oh, I have a syndrome. No,
Hmm.
if you get up and start doing things, the feeling will change. But
Correct.
I think as a society now, we have become focused on feelings, which I think has led to this quote unquote this large heading that we now label as depression.
Hmm.
Also, another thing that I feel is that if you point it out to people, it has a trigger warning. Everybody gets triggered. So having those important
Hmm.
discussions has also
Hmm.
become taboo, where you could sit down in a group and say
Hmm.
that maybe, holding yourself accountable or
Right.
developing a hobby or having some kind of an aim,
Hmm.
would alleviate your mood or, put you out of this little, you know, place that you find yourself in,
Hmm.
which you are labeling as depression. So that I think is another thing. Yeah, we have Umar. I see your hand has been raised, Umar. If you have to say something, please add to this.
Yeah, yeah, very nicely you have explained many things, but like, I just want to add that all of us have negative thoughts and positive thoughts. So it is very much important to identify your negative thoughts and convert them to the positive thoughts, which
Hmm.
many
Hmm.
of things you have said that how it can be done, and you
Hmm.
can even take help from that if they are dominating for you, so that it yani, some people have yani, more introvert personality, so it is better if they matlab, yani, if you express yourself, talk to the persons, so it
Hmm.
creates yani, it makes better environment.
Hmm. Right. So you see, another thing that is related to this is when we just said it's not a vacant. If it is a vacant mind's disease, it only shows that there is a lack of purpose in life. So to have a purpose in life is something that can be additionally accommodated and additionally, I would say, incorporated in our life, is to have a like a timetable. So a person should know what he or she is going to do tomorrow, day after tomorrow, like a checklist of things, not just errands, but purposeful things that you can point out to yourself that today I'm going to go there, do this, do that, and then sticking to that schedule. So you see, if you make a schedule for yourself, maybe a weekly schedule, and try to follow that schedule vis-a-vis the engagements that you might have. So the thing is that that should not leave you with much time to procrastinate or maybe think about what's going on negatively in life. because you're always involved in some positive activity. So that timetable, that schedule that you have, the planner that you have, the calendar that you might have is not just something that you do as an engagement in your profession, but to create opportunities every day, every now and then, in which there is something to look forward to every day of the week. So that it's like a I would say it's like an injection that really stirs you and it motivates you that today I have to do this task, I have to go to that person and help him, and I have to talk to this person and see what problem is that person going through, or I have to go for exercise, or I have to increase my skill. I mean, all these things, they have to be regulated. So they should not be just accommodated. They have to be regulated in the sense that we know what are the timings, what are the exact uh, schedules that we follow in doing all these things.
Another thing, Dr. Salima, is also, I think the vacant mind also happens because I think our lives are now so scheduled. It almost seems we are ticking off things that we have to do. The time to create that space where you want to do something which is even small, but for yourself, as in cleaning a space or helping
Mm,
out someone in the community, those have become so difficult because I think our lives have become so, we put so many things in our life and regimented our lives. When you
mm,
regiment it to an extent where everything is a tick mark, it also
mm,
takes away from the fact that you want to have some time where you are able to create that thought that, okay, today I'm
mm,
going to clean my room, or today I'm going to
mm,
go into the community and
mm,
help people distribute food at a
mm.
masjid. Stuff
Right.
like that we don't do anymore. It's from
Mm,
one thing to the other, and
right.
things which have already been
Mm, mm.
almost created as a timetable. Akram Bhatti Saab, please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum. Thank you, Bisma. In
Right.
the line about Bisma, and sir, you said, I would add that especially for retired people,
Mm,
it is true that they go especially if somebody had a busy life, now there's nothing to do, look for that, he got go to depression. If you don't cannot go out because of the
mm,
health and stuff, connect you to yourself to Quran
mm,
Pak. Understand
mhm.
that, try to research it, and keep yourself busy, and that will give you peace of mind, and that will take care
Right.
of depression. So keep yourself
Mm,
busy. If you, especially with all those activities that you guys mentioned, if they can go out. Some people get so sick
mm,
that they cannot go out. So I
mm.
just want to add this point
Right.
that it's also very beneficial.
Correct.
Thank you so much,
Uh,
Bhatti Saab. If anybody else has anything to add to this, please go ahead. It's going to be, I think it's a wonderful discussion, and there's so much that can be added to it. Um, Otherwise, we'll move to the Q&A session. We still have time. So if anybody has anything to add to this, please go ahead. Dr. Saleem, should I move to the Q&A?
yes, you may.
Please, if you have questions regarding the discussion or anything else, please go ahead. I do have a question in the chat, Dr. Saleem, but it's not related to the topic. Can I ask
So
it?
we can have. I mean,
An open
this is a
discussion,
time in
right?
which any question
Any
can be
question?
asked.
Okay, so there's a question, why the previous books of Allah have not been preserved as the Holy Quran?
I think the reason is quite simple, and that is because the institution of prophethood was in place, and so it was known that if the book would not be preserved, then the coming prophet would always or could always rectify the teachings that had been lost or maybe had been distorted. So, because the institution of prophet was in place, and there was a time in which prophets would come right after the one that would be leaving them. In fact, in the case of prophets coming between Moses and Jesus, we find the Bible telling us that one prophet would actually baptize the other prophet before going. I mean, the coming prophet would be baptized by the previous prophet. So it would be like a incessant stream of prophets at the same time, one after the other. So I think this was perhaps one of the reasons that there was no need for a book to be preserved, because prophets of God would always be there to rectify any distortions. But in the case of the Quran and Prophet Muhammad, because he was supposed to be the last prophet, there would be no prophet after him. So the book had to be preserved. Otherwise, how could mankind have had a authentic source to review from? Because there would be no other prophet, so the book had to be preserved.
Okay. More that I see you have your hand raised. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you. I have a suggestion and a question as well. My suggestion is that if we can have a notification just before the meeting starts, I think a lot more people will be able to join because sometimes we miss the time because we sometimes don't realize that the meeting has started or we don't see the time as often, especially in the morning in US or other countries. So that's a suggestion.
Okay. So more, we usually do send out a reminder half an hour before the session and sometimes even 10 minutes before the session. I don't know if we were able to today, but usually we do. But that's a good suggestion. Thank you so much. Amar, go ahead and ask your question.
So my
जी अस्सलाम
question,
वालेकुम
sorry, I said I have a suggestion and I have a question. So my question, if I can get to that.
Yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
Mo, then we'll come to Amar later. Go ahead.
So there is a hadith. I don't remember the exact verbiage of that, but it's narrated by Abu Huraira, where he basically says that actually I found it that Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that those people who get up from a gathering in which they did not remember Allah will be just as if they had got up from a gathering similar to that of a carcass of a donkey, and it will be a cause of grief to them. And just to add to that, we go to a lot of gatherings like friends, relatives, work related, and many other things that are not particularly about that.
Right.
So that actually, the person who sent it to me, he portrayed that your whole life should be around remembering Allah, which makes sense. But like this is, don't you think like this conflicts with like the general message of Quran, which is not about Rahbaniyat, but
Right.
more about living
So
your life.
always remember that hadith narratives, they're always situational. It's not that they give a sort of a general statement, like a blanket statement that is to be done at all times. So they are always situational. At times, people are neglecting remembering God. At times, the hypocrites, in the times of the Prophet, they would be working mischief. So what happens is that narrators, they just pick up the words of the Prophet without describing the situation. And then what happens is that when you just read the words, you find as if they have an unconditional application for all times to come in every situation. That never happens. Every hadith, because you see, the Prophet never sat down to lecture or maybe teach the way we are used to. He would remark, would make remarks on situations that would be brought to his notice, or passing by, he might have taken the initiative in passing a remark, or maybe commenting. So it would be some situation. So that is why this very important sentence that you must always keep in mind is that hadith is always situational. Something has happened on which the Prophet is commenting. And that happening is more often than not found in that narrative. So what we do is that we gather all the narratives that mention a similar incident or a similar statement. And then at times we are able to reconstruct that this was happening when the Prophet said this. But on many occasions, even that is not available to us, because you see, things just are handed down without the context being preserved. So always treat a hadith in the light of the Quran, in the light of common sense, in the light of practice. So if you do that, you will understand that there is a special case here that is especially being pointed out, and that is when people indulge in a lot of ignorant activities. Maybe they start to make fun of each other. They indulge in activities that are against religion. So the Prophet is trying to make them understand that gatherings in which you indulge in these things that make you turn away from God, they cause this as the one of the hadith says, that's like a stain in your heart, and you feel that stain is getting heavier. So what the zikr or remembrance of God does, it washes away that stain. So remember, it's about some particular gatherings that the Prophet was commenting. We don't know what exactly those gatherings were because they have not been reported, but it clearly shows that there was something at hand regarding which the Prophet was giving this advice. So in the light of this, what can be understood today is that our gatherings should, of course, it doesn't mean that we cannot joke, we cannot laugh about. Yes, that's all fine, but they should not be things that make us unmindful of God. They should not be activities that make us forget God. So that if it would happen, the Prophet had to say these words that, well, don't forget God, and if you forget God, then you'll be like a bunch of donkeys, etc., as the example says. So that is the understanding that I think should be gauged, or the message of that hadith is that every gathering should have I mean, there should be a certain level of decency. And if you find that that decency level is not there, then one of the things that they can really help is at times that remembrance of God, if not for the whole company, then at least for one of the participants or people individually who are able to understand that, okay, at least I should not be affected by the negative aura of this meeting.
Yeah, that makes a
Thank,
lot more sense.
thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. Amar, please ask your question. Thank you.
जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम डॉक्टर साहब
By Islam.
डॉक्टर साहब this verse which is verse number 34 in Surah Baqarah, and it's not in front of me right now, but I think that the translation is that we asked all the angels to prostrate before Adam, but Iblis did not. And then there is some, the verse goes on, I think, but this is the part that I remember, and this is the part which I have the question about. So the question is, if I look at this verse and its translation just grammatically, and I do not know any background of the story of Adam and Iblis and all of this, then I will have to assume from a literary or grammatical point of view that Iblis was one of the angels, because this is the sentence: we asked all the angels to prostrate before Adam, but Iblis did not, and he was arrogant. This makes no sense to me, because this clearly shows me that Iblis was an angel. Secondly, in one of the talks of Ghamidi Sahib, he has said that it is a myth that Iblis was a very God-fearing jinn who was always doing namaz, and he was very God, like he was a good Muslim. This is the myth. Because if this was the case, then he would not have behaved the way that he did. And so, but I do not remember what alternate sources he claimed in that, or he cited in that this is why this belief has become. But sir, if he was not a good Muslim, Iblis, why was he in the company of God? Why was he even in the room, as as the expression goes? Why was he even asked when angels were being asked? And sir, also please, if you could clarify the grammatical confusion in the ayat itself. Thank you, sir.
Well, you see, there is no actual confusion in the verse. Once you read the incidents of Adam and Satan at all instances in the Quran, so they're mentioned about 7 or 8 times. And this also is a rule while studying the Quran, that if you are studying an incident, like, for example, the incident of Adam or Satan, we have Moses and the Pharaoh speaking at different instances in the different surahs. We have the instance of creation in some surahs. So there are different surahs that actually portray the same incident with some new angle. So in your case, the question that you've asked regarding the creation of Adam and the fact that whether Iblis was asked to prostrate or not, or whether he was among the angels or the jinn, you'll find that there are other parts of the Quran that specifically say that kana min al jinn. So there is another verse in the Quran which tells us that he did not belong to the genre of angels, he was a jinn. But then, of course, the question would be that were the jinn also asked to prostrate? Then there is another surah in the Quran, Surah Araf, that tells us that the Almighty addressed both the jinn and the angels to prostrate. And Iblis, he said that I'll not prostrate. And in fact, the words in Surah Araf are that why did you not prostrate when I asked you to do so? So it's like a question of gathering all these instances in the Quran regarding the incident of Adam and Iblis, and then coming to a value judgment. So we can summarize by saying that when God decided to create Adam, he beforehand actually informed 2 major creations that existed at that time. One of the cognizant creations, one of them were the angels, and the other were the jinn kind, and both of them were told that this is what is going to happen. And so separately, Iblis, of course, being a jinn, he, out of his own arrogance, because the Quran then, on various occasions of this incident, wherever it is written, points out that everywhere there's one common line which the Quran says, Aba wastakbara, which means that he refused to prostrate and he was arrogant. He was haughty, and he said that why would I prostrate before someone who's made of clay, and whereas I am made of fire, which is a superior substance. So these are all things that you will gather as you read all the variants of this incident. And therefore, it becomes very easy when you read Surah Baqarah's verse 34 in mind, that you know that now the question was addressed to both the angels and to the jinn kind at the same time. And we also know that Iblis was addressed as a representative of the jinn kind, and the angels were addressed in general. So this is how things work in the Quran. Remember, the Quran is not like a book that we are used to, in which one thing is mentioned at just one place, and then of course you go on to our next topic. The Quran has this structure in which topics, they are distributed in different chapters of the Quran, and somehow or the other, each instance of that repetition is going to add some value, some more picture to the complete picture. As far as your second part is concerned, that whether Iblis was a devout jinn or not, that is all something that we don't find in the Quran or anywhere in any authentic narrative. So people have made up this, maybe to the best of my knowledge, that Iblis was someone who was very devout. It's not mentioned anywhere in any authentic narrative, or certainly not in the Quran. And I do dare think that it is the Sufia who find this, who have maybe pointed out this for the first time, that he was a pious person, and then he, in spite of that piety, he was overcome with this arrogance, because they wanted to demonstrate that however much a pious person could be, that pious person can still become arrogant or overcome with arrogance. So that's again besides the point, and it's more of a conjecture on my part. But to tell you the truth, there is no authentic information available about the past of Iblis.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem.
So, can I
Amar,
very
go ahead.
quickly ask a follow-up? Thank you. If there
Yeah,
is-
yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So, sir, this confusion still remains in my mind. If he was a representative of all of like jinn kind, why was he chosen as a representative if he was not of an exemplary character? Because otherwise, what would make more sense to me is that you had all the jinn in front of you and you asked them as a whole group of creatures, and one person said no, and then that person stood out and
That was precisely the reason that it was narrated, that all of them, they submitted. And you see, God does not make you do things. You are given the option to do things. So God in his knowledge would have known that Iblis would not accept this command. But then I think this was the very purpose, to show that people act out of their own volition, out of their own free will. And then when they do so, of course, there are consequences as well. So remember the fact that whether he was a pious person or not, that's not reason enough for us to say that, well, why did God gather people who are evil in front of him, or as you said, in the same room? That's not how God works, I would say. So this is something that was to come out. I mean, it was there in God's knowledge that he was someone who would not acquiesce to the directive of God, but it did. I mean, he did not override it. I mean, he knew that this would happen in future, but that is something that he did not make him decide otherwise. So in other words, what happened was that even if he was to become an evil person, that would have happened after that. And that would be, of course, when he would express that arrogance and reject. Before that, we don't know what was the situation. So the point being made here is that regardless of who we were, the fact is that all creation that had the ability to act on its own free will, which to us are the two creations of angels and jinn kind. So they were actually called in the presence of God, and this whole conversation took place. So remember, not all parts of the conversation have been reported, just the necessary parts have been reported. There could be other angels or other jinn who have had an exact same view, or maybe the same description regarding the angels. So this one person stood out, and because he stood out in a very, very conspicuous way, and then of course this whole scheme of God was also given an impetus, because this was Satan who was saying that you give me some time and I'm going to lead your people astray, and God telling him, okay, fine, you go and do whatever you like, but my people are not going to go astray, especially those who become attached to me. So it seems that because God's scheme was to check people and test people through various lures and various provocations, and Satan would be the best person to do that. So God let it happen, if you look at it in hindsight. But the thing is that this is how things are reported, and it's not at all the details are exactly the ones. I mean, not every detail is reported.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Saleem, the sound keeps disappearing right at the end of your comment
Okay.
for the last comments. Zoom user, I don't have your name, but please go ahead and ask your question. Thank you.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum, sir. I wanted to ask
Awesome.
two questions. The
Okay.
first one is that you were talking about depression. How does one know that you're actually going through depression or somebody around you is depressed, besides the clinical
Hmm.
explanation of it? And the second question is, if you feel that you are getting anxiety attacks or some sort of a mental issue because of being living with somebody who kind of habitually screams or becomes
Hmm.
aggressive, how do you deal with that? Because you can't
Hmm.
live somewhere else. How do you deal with that?
So first, regarding the first part of your question, that how do you get to know? I mean, this is something that we know by practice, by experience, by interaction with other people, that at times our mood swings, that low feeling that we have, that is something like I mean, it's not like a chronic thing. It comes and goes away. Only when it becomes chronic. Chronic means that it becomes like a major part of your life every day. So that is where one needs medical help and maybe some medicine for the cure. But otherwise, what the situation says, that you are living in a place in which the environment is not conducive, in which things happen that make you psychologically, I would say, unstable, and also you feel that you're living amongst people somehow in which you're not able to communicate yourself, or maybe other people are not trying or making enough effort to making you understand. So this is something that then causes you to worry about this whole situation, and then you are, if you're not able to find a solution, so that is something that then at times takes its toll. So what I'm trying to say here is that it's like a personal feeling that you would understand when it comes and goes away, that it's something that you can deal by actually either altering the situation or dealing with the situation, or maybe putting yourself in a different situation. And more than that, of course, it's like something that you would get to know. It's like thirst coming to you when you're thirsty, or a hunger coming to you, because you see, this is a practice that it's not just a single person goes through. When you talk to other people, they tell you about similar experiences, and then you get to know, well, that this is what is being talked about. And the second part of your question, I think there cannot be a rule of thumb sort of an answer, because you see, every person is passing through different situations. It's like managing your situation in life. At times, you're not able to dislodge yourself from that environment because there are no means and resources. You are living with individuals with whom you have to somehow keep a distance, and at the same time also have some contact. So I think it's more a question of finding that management plan for your own self, in which somehow you are able to protect your privacy and at the same time also contribute to that collectivity. I mean, more details or more detailed advice can be given if more details are furnished, but just a general thought that I can say in this regard is that, and the specifics are given, that this is a situation that you have to manage. It is much like managing maybe a person that you are stuck with as a boss, maybe, or as a colleague that you cannot leave. So just as we try to manage our relationships at work, amongst friends, amongst so many other circles, it is a question of doing the same in our household activities. The only thing is that regarding our house, it becomes much more pronounced, because the other circle is not something which is permanent. It comes and goes away. It has its own time. But living in the same house, of course, is a different sort of a situation. But again, my advice would be that that is a management issue. That's a personal management issue. You can seek therapy from it, about it. You can see how you can manage, how you can make yourself independent. And as I said, if more details are furnished, maybe I can also put in some word of advice. But a general advice would be to just think that these are issues that are meant to bother you. Of course, not in the sense that they are like a punishment. You see, if you look at these issues in the broader sense, then you'll understand that all of us, we are made to pass through certain circumstances that are a means for a trial and test for us, because that is how God has made us. He has made this world such that we pass through trials and tribulations, and He wants to check how we behave in these trials and these tribulations, and whether we still count our blessings or not. So one of the antidotes to these situations, again, as a more general answer I've been giving you, is that when you are passing through these testing times, always count your blessings, always see what you have. And I dare say, I mean, very small, ordinary things that one tends to overlook, or we don't give in weight to, we don't realize, like the eyes we have, the fact that we have a life to live under a roof, we have clothes to wear, we have small things to laugh at. So these are not ordinary things. So in order to make yourself manage those trying circumstances, one part of that management is to always look at what you have and be thankful on that, and try to manage the other part.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Saleem. If anybody has any other questions, please raise your hands. Yes, Ammar, go ahead, ask your question. Thank you.
Ji, Assalamu alaikum again. Dr. Saab, my question was about kickbacks or rishwat that is so prevalent in our business culture. Sir, I run a moderately successful film company, and in my line of business, almost always, work only comes to you if you are able to furnish kickbacks on the projects that you get. I mean, without that, it is the business, the size of the business becomes very minuscule, almost negligible. Sometimes months upon months or years go by and you do not get a project. So miraculously, sir, like I'm not bragging, but miraculously for the past 10, 11 years, I have been running my company without servicing a single kickback. And what that does is that it always makes me think that, okay, this is the only clean income that I can get from this profession. Otherwise, the income will not be clean. But the problem is, sir, that the more I get into this business world and then the more that I find out and I talk to businessmen, who are actually running big businesses where there are so many expenses and taxes and salaries have to be given to employees. What they are constantly saying is that you are living in a fool's paradise, and this is an unrealistic kind of a thought process. And so I also see that in my business. Like, for example, if I was doing things the way that everybody else is doing, I would be getting 10 times the amount of work. But I do not, and I suffer, but I'm thankful that, okay, this little that I get is clean. But also, sir, I have a question. For a really long period of time, I had jobs in different companies. And so I always felt that the income of a job is very clean because, it's very non-complicated. You go to an office, you work, you do your thing, you get paid at the end of the month, and that's it. Nobody asks you for kickbacks or for whatever. The problem is that the heads of the same companies are getting business because they are giving kickbacks. That's why I am getting the so-called clean monthly salary that I am thinking about. Okay, this is clean, but it's not, because the CEOs are actually giving somebody kickbacks so that they can get the business and the projects and the clients, so that they can have employees and so that those employees can have salaries. So then everything is unclean. And so then how do we go about this, and what is the correct way of looking at all of this? Thank you.
Actually, this is a scenario through which maybe 99% of the people who do business in Pakistan of any sort, they go through, some more, some less. And this is a really sad situation. And success, obviously, as you rightly said, it hinges on the more you give, the more you pour into, the more you're likely to succeed. So at best, what can be said is that in this society, if there is this thing that you cannot help going without, the only thing is that you should do it as much as maybe you need to sustain yourself, and do as much charity as is possible. Because you see what the Sahaba used to do and what the Quran tells us is that at times when you're not able to do something in a clean way, not because you don't want to do it, but because of the pressure of the society and the collective situation in which a single man can do nothing. So it's like compensating for that by returning some of the money that you earn to the vulnerable sections of the society, thinking that, well, this actually belonged to them, and maybe in my position, because of that particular role, that money should have gone to such people, but it has come to me. It's not a very accurate situation. It's more of a simplistic view, simplified view, I would say. or maybe an oversimplification. But then, yes, this is what can be done. Remember, religion does not tell us to do things that are out of the ordinary, in the sense that you just forsake everything and leave everything aside and lose and give up the world and, and go and sit in the corner. So that's not the right attitude. The right attitude is to fight the way through, do as much as you can in the best possible way, and wherever you feel that you don't have a headway, don't feel like, I mean, you don't have any option, so just do it as much as necessarily needed, and then compensate it through helping out people as much as you can, and maybe looking for some alternative. I know that's a very difficult thing, especially for people who are specialized in their professions. But then, of course, as I said, this is the challenge of life. And remember, this is the challenge that many people face. And as some lady just before you has said, the situation in life in which you're living in a house, in which you have to deal with your relatives, maybe your close relatives as your mother or your sister. On the face of it, it just does seem that, well, what is this going on in my life? But if you go deeper, always remember that these are these are the, I would say, vehicles through which God tests and checks people. So just as you are passing through these difficult circumstances regarding your professional life, regarding earning clean money, someone else is passing through the same scenario, but in a different way. So if you just look at the whole setup of this world, in the sense that you are in a challenging position all the time, you are always being challenged by finances, by relatives, by sickness, by so many other contingent circumstances. And it says it is our collective effort to deal with these, and be in a position in ourselves that when we face God in the next day, we can say to him in a reasonably satisfied way that, God, I tried my best. So what I'm saying is that just try your best. It should not be that you don't try your best. It should not be that you just give up in life. It should not be that you just feel that, well, things will take their own turn. That should not be the case. Try your best, and then whatever is beyond you, hopefully, inshallah, God is going to take care of that. And as I said, in this world, try to be as much of service as you can to human beings.
Thank you so much for that, Dr. Saleem. I have a rather longish question, so I'm going to read it. Please bear with me while I read it. Okay. Salam, if a parent is going through a severe long-term depression, but they are trying to break out of it, but in the meantime, it is affecting the rest of the family negatively a lot, especially the children. It makes the children distant from the one parent and strongly towards the other parent, even though the kids used to be very close to that depressed parent before. Of course, all parents deserve their kids' affection, but the imbalance seems very disparaging and hurtful. Please advise how to regain kids' trust and affection.
I mean, this is again a very general situation, and I would ask you to please get in touch with me personally so that I can give you a more pinpointed advice. Because you see, on most occasions, what has happened is happened because of what I call as messy parenting. At times, you don't realize that there are certain things that you should not do regarding your grown-up children, and when you do them, and you do them repetitively, you don't realize that you lose your child. You lose his or her focus, you lose his or her love, and then things just start to fall apart. So on most occasions, it is the parents. I'm a parent myself, so I put myself in the same situation and place as well, that it is us parents who need to just review, revisit, and once again analyze where we are falling short of. Because I can tell you out of my own experience of advising people on parenting for the last 25 years, that on 99%, if not more occasions, it is the parents who somehow have taken the back seat. They are absent parents. So I call this as absentee parenting, which means that the time that they were supposed to be, contributing in the lives of their children, they were sleeping, they were absent, they were on a different plane of existence. And then suddenly, when things start to happen, then they get alarmed. So every situation has a background, and things get out of hand. They don't get out of hand immediately. There is always a big, I would say, backlog that causes that to happen. So it is an analysis of that backlog. It's like taking a history of your own, taking an account of or stock taking about your own history, what you have done. And as I said, I can only give you specific advice if you can perhaps get in touch with me personally.
Thank you for that, Dr. Saleem. I have another question. Are spouses
So we are
predestined?
already, so we will be,
Oh.
so like, remember, we are already 15 minutes over
Oh,
time.
I'm so sorry, Dr. Saleem, because I don't use this session usually.
we
So
do,
I'm
we
sorry, I
do,
lost track of time. Okay, so we'll end the session now. I have one question. Maybe we can just take it later then.
okay, if the question is short, I can go ahead with it.
Spouses predestined, or do we choose them?
I think this is a question that should not bother us because you see, the fact is whether they are predestined or not, that's a question that relates to a philosophical debate. But the thing is that what happens actually is that we choose them. Either we choose them or our parents choose them. So when we say they are predestined, it only means that God will know the choice. He's not driving us to choose a spouse. He will just know that, well, such and such a person is going to choose this spouse or that spouse. So God's knowledge is something about which we often talk about as if it is predestined. So that's not, I mean, that's not the right approach. It seems from this approach as if everything has been pre-programmed. That's not the right situation or the right, I would say, view of the Quran. We choose our lives except for certain things. Like, for example, we cannot choose our parents. We cannot choose our country. We cannot choose our date of birth. So these are the things about which God has his own plans about, and he's not going to ask us about those things. But then there are instances regarding which we have our choice, and we know that when I make a choice of what to do every day or what to do in my life, I know that I am doing it on myself, or maybe I'm getting influenced. But it's not God who's pushing me to do a certain thing, or maybe I'm pre-programmed. So the bottom line is that you make your choices, but whatever choice you make is already in the knowledge of God. But that knowledge is not driving you to make that choice.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. Thank you so
All the
much for
best.
that, and I'm truly apologize for going over time. I just lost track of time, I'm not aware of this. Inshallah, we'll reconvene tomorrow and for textual study of the Quran. Thank you, Dr. Saleem, for your wisdom, and thank you everybody else for joining. Khuda Hafiz.